Hi everyone, I'm Rockin' Robin, and in today's episode I'm going to show you how to make some homemade apple crisp. Now this is super easy to make, anybody can do it, and it really doesn't take very long, and it's really delicious. It's nice to serve it hot out of the oven and topped with some vanilla ice cream a la mode. Let's start our recipe by going over the ingredients we're going to need to use. First off, we're going to need some apples. Now, what I have here is I have 9, you can use 9 to 10 apples. I like to use, Pippin is my very first choice, but they're difficult to find year-round, so right now you can find Granny Smiths just about anywhere, so we'll be using that. I've got some sugar, and we'll have probably between a half a cup and 2/3 of a cup, depending on how tart the apples are. And over here we have some cornstarch. I have a tablespoon and a half of that, and what that does is kind of thicken it up a little bit so it's not real runny. And then we'll add some ground cinnamon. We have 2 teaspoons of that. And then for our topping over here, we're going to need some butter. I have a 3/4 of a cup of butter, and I'm going to be needing some flour. So here I'm using gluten-free flour, but you can use regular flour if you like. And we have a 1.25 cups of that. You'll also need a 1.25 cups of some packed brown sugar, and over here I've got some oat flour. Now you can buy your flour already ground up like this, like what I did here today, or you can make your own. And you can do your own by taking just regular oatmeal and putting it in a blender and blending it until it's like a flour. So that's what we need for this recipe, and we'll get started with peeling our apples. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just cut up our apples, cut them in half, and then I just go ahead and core them and peel them. This takes the most amount of time. I just want to show you real quick how to slice them up. It's sort of like same thing that you're making, how you make an apple pie. So let's take the peeling off, and then over here in my bowl I'm just going to make slices, just like that. So I happen to have an apple peeler core that I love to use with this in any apple pie recipe or anytime I'm peeling apples. So I wanted to just show it to you, and if you decide you might want to get one, you might after you see this. Okay, so I pull this apart and take my apple. You want to put this right in the core. And push it in, straight in, and then all you do is start twirling, and it peels the apple for you and it cores it all at the same time. And you keep going all the way to get to the end, and then you just pull it off just like that. Isn't that cool? And then all you got to do is slice this in half, and you do want to check for any little core pieces left in there because they're not really too tasty to eat. So I'll just cut a little bit of that off, and then you can just throw your apple right in there. It's all nice and sliced, and there you go. So we're going to go ahead and put all of our apples in this bowl, and then we'll come back. All right, so we're down to our last apple with our fun little peeler core, and we'll toss those in the bowl. And now our next step is to mix our seasonings here. We got our sugar. I'm going to just go ahead and pour the cinnamon into the sugar and the cornstarch before I add it to the apples, so I can get it all nicely mixed together. So just give this a nice little stir right here, and then we're going to go ahead and sprinkle this over the apples. And then I'm going to go ahead and toss it with a spoon. I want to coat all the apples with the sugar and the cinnamon. All right, so now that we've got the apples coated, I'm just going to pour it into a 9 by 13, which I have right here. Just toss them all in there. should fit. And make sure you get all the sugar in the bowl. Okay, so now just kind of even it out. And it's going to cook down as it cooks, obviously. So, all right. Now we're ready to make the topping to put on top of our apples. So I've got a nice clean bowl here that I washed out, and I'm going to go ahead and pour the flours into the bowl. And then the brown sugar. And I'm just going to go ahead and mix everything up with my hand and I'm going to break up the sugar here so that it's not in clumps. And now we'll add the butter, and we'll cut the butter in with our pastry blender. Okay, now I cut the butter up into chunks like this. We'll just sit it in there. And we'll take the pastry blender and just start cutting. So it breaks it up into pieces, and eventually it should get like little peas. So this is what it should look like. You can see the pieces of the butter are much smaller, and you just keep cleaning off your pastry blender here, and then just go back in, and you can see it's got looks like little peas almost. And now we're ready to go ahead and sprinkle this on top of the apples. So we just use our hands and we just sprinkle. And we cover the whole thing, and this is going to make a very nice little crust on top. And the brown sugar, of course, is going to seep down, and it's going to make it nice and gooey, which is the way I like it. And this, cutting up your oatmeal like this, makes a crust that's not quite so chewy. And then now we're going to be ready to put this in the oven at 350 degrees. You can hear my oven just went off, and it's ready. It's hot and ready to go for 30 minutes. And we'll want to place this on a cookie sheet. I have a foil covered cookie sheet here that I want to use in case it drips over. Okay, I'll pop this in the oven. Okay, so I took the apple crisp out. It's been sitting here for about 10 minutes now, cooling off. And I do want to mention that I tested it at 30 minutes, and then I ended up putting it in for about 45 minutes. So you can take a fork and just stick it in there, and you can feel how soft your apples are. That's a good indication. And I also want to mention that you can also, if you like nuts or walnuts, raisins, you could add those to this if you want. We don't do that because we prefer it without, but I like to add vanilla ice cream. So I'm going to go ahead and try and serve this. Hopefully it'll come out without too much of a mess. Oh boy. That first piece is always the tough one to get out. So I'm just go ahead and scoop it up. Yeah. The kitchen smells wonderful, by the way. It smells of cinnamon, which is always a wonderful smell. And the way I like to eat it is I like to put a nice scoop of vanilla ice cream on top. When it's still warm, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a taste. Let's see if I can get a little ice cream in there. Maybe not. So wonderful when it's warm like that with the ice cream. That's really good. I hope you guys will give this a try. I think you'll really like it. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure and subscribe to my channel by clicking that link right up there. And leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. All right, well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.